All right, now we're in chapter 6, data communications. All right, so let's talk about data communications a bit. So data communications is when we transfer data from one location to another electronically, and we use a variety of different mechanisms to facilitate that. We have components, so we have devices that send and receive data. We all have these: smartphones, laptops, desktops, and then the servers, which we talked about last week. Servers are the large computers that run our websites and applications and things like that. But we also have network equipment, which can be made up of routers, switches, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, intrusion protection systems. Well, there's other ones as well I'm not thinking of right now. Sometimes these are mixed together in one specific device. Sometimes they're separate devices. Okay? Telecommunications media that we use are wired and wireless. And then we have bandwidth. So most of the US has access to broadband now, but in some areas, narrowband is the only option in super rural areas. This is why when you go out in the desert and you have really poor internet service, it's because it's a lower bandwidth. Okay. Telecommunications media. So we could use copper wiring. That's what most of us have in our homes or dorm rooms. We can have coaxial cable. So if you have cable internet, you have a coaxial cable. It's very rigid, not as easy to bend. And it comes into your cable modem. And then from there, it's usually copper wiring or wireless. We can have fiber optics, which not as common in homes. My home happens to be in a neighborhood with fiber optics. So I have coaxial cable go to my backup internet from Spectrum, but my primary internet's from Frontier, and they have fiber optic cable that comes to my house, and it's made out of glass with plastic around it. Okay. And then we have wireless, which there's many different types. So cellular is the most common for all of us, but we also have satellite, microwave, infrared, etc. When we talk about data communications, we talk about the OSI model. So there's 7 layers in the OSI model. And this might be on the exam. Okay, so the OSI model has the application layer at the top, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and physical. Okay. So you'll want to look at that in the book. Different types of networks. We have local area networks, wide area networks, and metropolitan area networks. And so local area networks or LANs are what all of us have in our home for connecting our devices, whether it's through wireless or physical copper connections. Okay. Wide area networks connect different locations together. So the internet's a type of WAN, which connects many different WANs together and many different LANs together. Okay. So UCR has a WAN which connects the Palm Desert Center to the UCR campus. The Metropolitan Area Network, or MAN, is a type of network that's within a metropolitan region to connect multiple, say, offices together. So AT&T might have a MAN between their different facilities in the LA region. There are different types of network topologies. So we have star, ring, bus, tree, and mesh. You're rarely going to see a mesh network in a wired format. You'll only ever see it in a wireless format. Okay? And the reason is this: think about a mesh network of every person in the class needs to have a wire connected to every other person in the class. Okay? So each individual is going to be holding, because there's 50 people in this class, each person is going to have 49 wires connecting to 49 other people. Okay? You can imagine what that looks like from a physical perspective. Looks like a big bowl of spaghetti. Okay? So you're only ever going to really see mesh in wireless systems. In terms of networking concepts, we have TCP/IP, which you'll hear abbreviated, but it stands for Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. That's the protocol, or think of it like the language. Okay, that's the, using an analogy, that's the Spanish or the English or the German. Okay, that's a language that we agree to use for talking on the internet. Okay. Routing is a concept. Think of it like a road trip for data. Okay? So when we are going out to Facebook or Twitter or wherever we happen to go, we are taking a trip. And how we get there is dependent on the traffic on the internet. And so routing allows us to take the most effective trip to get to the destination. So if I take a trip once and then I go take that same trip again, I might take a different route to get there. If I'm taking a trip to Facebook and my neighbor's taking a trip to Facebook at the same time, we might go completely different routes. Packets are a collection of binary data. So everything that we do on the internet is broken into what's called a packet. And those packets get routed to the destination website. Routing tables are generally generated automatically, but some people have static routes for whatever reason. So you might have some static routes for certain services that you own, but generally speaking, they're dynamically generated. And a router is special hardware that determines the path for the data. So think of it as like the GPS. Okay? If you have a cable or DSL connection at home, then your router is built in. Okay? We're going to skip over systems architecture because we're not going to cover that in this class. Wireless networks. So we have cellular and mobile networks, which are radio-based, and these radio cells, hence the name cellular, they're distributed geographically to provide signals over a wide area. And then we have Wi-Fi, which is very small distance, but it's faster than cellular and mobile, generally speaking. Okay? So most of us probably have a Wi-Fi network in our home, and it doesn't reach very far. Someone wants to ask me the question, I will show you what my wireless looks like. It's completely different than probably what you've seen. I'm probably closer to what you see on UCR's network. My wireless is a completely separate device than my router. Okay. And then we have telepresence, which is where we converge voice and video and data. Okay. And so we have the Cisco telepresence system. If you haven't had the fortunate nature of experiencing one of these yourself, that's okay. There's a video linked from the slides for what this looks like, but effectively imagine you're in a room, in a conference room, and other people are in a conference room in a different office, and it actually looks like you're sitting across the table from one another. Okay? It's that high of quality. Then we have things like WebEx and Zoom and Google Meet, which are desktop versions that we can use. Okay? And then BlueJeans is another example, but I think they've been acquired. Okay. And that is it for now. Now I will post some demos next week on basic networking, IPs, DNS, etc. Okay, so I'll be doing that as a demonstration separately for the lecture.